Hey, if you want to feel understood and you want to understand and you want to bring out the best in someone and you want others to bring out the best in you, this video is for you. This is all about deep listening and healthy love. I just finished a Dharma talk and meditation on this particular topic. And I was like, well, why don't I just come here too and share with you the 3 points that I shared there? Because this is something that we didn't learn in school. I mean, one of my mentors, Jason Gaddis, he runs the relationship school. He's incredible. Check him out. But, he teaches a whole course on relationship because, he said that it's just not something that we were ever taught in school. And isn't it true? And we wonder why we feel stuck and stagnant in certain relationships. And often it's because we're not tuned into these 3 points that I want to speak to. And so let's talk first about healthy love. What does that mean? It means that, I am devoted to loving myself and others in a way that bring out the best in them and in myself, right? Because we know we are in relationships with people who we care deeply about, our partners or our family, our close friends maybe. And we don't tend to do this so much with like acquaintances and authority figures and people we work with. But when we get really close to someone, you ever notice how it's so much easier to tear them down than it is to build them up? And so we need to recognize that and allow there to be some compassion and forgiveness of yourself so that you can really just honestly take inventory of your relationships. And the first one that we want to look at is the relationship we have with ourselves. So these 3 points apply to both the relationship with the self and the relationship with other. And this doesn't necessarily mean hey Kim, it doesn't necessarily mean a significant other. You don't have to have an intimate partner for this to really make a difference for you in your life. So again, if you want to feel understood and you want to understand and you want to bring out the best in yourself and in others and have the same happen for you, then that's what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about deep listening and healthy love. And I just defined what healthy love is. And I want to define what listening is as opposed to what we usually, have you ever had that conversation with someone where you're like, you're not listening to me. And they're like, I've heard everything you've said, and they can totally tell you every word you've said, but you don't feel heard. We've all had that experience, and you've done it too. We do it too, right? So someone's telling us something and we're not deeply listening. We're hearing the words, but we're not deeply understanding the other's point of view. And that's what deep listening is. So Thich Nhat Hanh said listening is love. Listening is love. And listening doesn't mean I can hear everything you say and repeat it back to you. It's much deeper than that. This is like the warrior's practice, the spiritual warrior's practice, because we know this to be true, that relationships are integral to our happiness. Integral. We are relational beings. We are not islands. Even if you're an introvert like me, one of the quickest ways to get depressed is to isolate and to stay in our comfort zones and to not reach out and to not get intimate and to not go deep with people because it's scary, it's vulnerable, and again, no one's taught us how to do it. But we can all learn, right? You can learn now. No matter where you are, you can learn healthy love in this practice of deep listening. And when you engage in these things, relationships feel more nourishing, more supportive. It gives our life meaning. It helps us feel connected to ourselves and to our purpose. So this is a really important piece that we want to engage in our personal growth and spiritual practices. I'm looking at my notes here so I don't miss anything. Okay, so the first aspect of deep listening is listen to yourself. So the first person we want to get good at listening to is us. And it doesn't have to happen like I got to get to be like this perfectly good listener to myself and really take good care of myself and then I can do it for others. They happen together. Okay, because I go off, we all come back and forth. We all go into amnesia. We forget about the relationship with the self, the relationship from others. We go into default. We go into old patterns, old behaviors. We get triggered. We go unconscious. That happens to all of us. So I want you to think more about this as like a waking up out of the trance of blame, criticism of ourselves and others. It's like waking up out of that trance and then choosing something different. And we make that choice over and over again every day. So this isn't a one and done sort of a thing. Listening to yourself means you're aware of what you're thinking and feeling without judgment. And there's an element of caring about that. So like right now you can just sense, how connected are you to yourself? Like, what are you feeling right now? Like, what are you thinking right now? Are you really here or are you somewhere else? You know? Just starting to tune in. What are you feeling? Are you happy, sad, angry, afraid, or some variation of that? And this is deep listening to the self. I'm not trying to fix or change what I notice. I'm just tuning in, you know, and I usually will put my hand on my heart when I'm doing this. Like, what's true for me right now? And that can be a good question to enter into. Now, notice in this inquiry, I'm aware of my thoughts, but I'm not necessarily getting like hooked into the thoughts that I'm thinking. This is an important piece because often when we're in relationship with someone else and say there's a conflict, like what we do is we get into argument, right? And if you have someone close to you in your life, y'all probably have the argument, like couples do this. It'll be about different things, but it's really the same argument. And why does that argument happen? Well, we're not deeply listening to each other or to ourselves. And so what we do is we stay stuck in the words. Good to see you, Sarah. We stay stuck in the words. Miss you too. I'm glad you're here. So good to have you here. And so I'm going to talk about that in number 2. But the first one I want to talk about is, again, let me finish up listening to yourself. It's just all about being self-aware of what you're thinking and what you're feeling. We often miss this step, like when we get the text message that is short or what we interpret to be as cold. You know, we miss this step when our partner or our kids make a face. Hey, good to have you here. Make a face, or they do the body language, or something happens externally and we get triggered. And that will lead, like, right, and then we're triggered, and if we're not aware that we got triggered, then we'll get into blame, we'll get into criticizing, we'll get into shame, shut down, right, all of that. So that's why number 1, listening to yourself is so important, because you want to catch yourself in that moment when you're triggered. When something happens inside that you start to close down, right? And so when we notice that, because we've been deeply listening to ourselves, we can take a moment and start to like tune into that and not project it onto the other person. And now we're ready to go to number 2, which is part of deep listening is listening to emotions and not words. I mean, words are important, but not nearly as important in terms of being understood or understanding as emotions. So just understanding someone's words or someone understanding your words doesn't have us feeling understood, does it? Because what our hearts want is the language of the heart to be recognized, which is emotions. There's always emotions underneath it. Like when you're triggered, the mind will go, right? The mental proliferation will start to happen. Hey, welcome. But what's at the root of that mental proliferation, all those thinking, I can't believe they said that. I can't believe she said he's doing that again. I'm doing that again. They're doing that again. Like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with them? You know, screw them. Like, whatever our dialogue is. I'm such a bad person. I'm such a great person. Whatever. That's like all the blaming, shaming, criticizing that the mind does. We want to drop beneath that and start to sense, what is the feeling there that's under the trigger, right? So if I'm triggered, I want to tune into like, what's the emotion? And if we're in a dialogue with someone and say maybe they're triggered or they're trying to talk to us or whatever is going on there, we can start to sense, rather than like understanding what they're saying, try to understand what they're feeling. Get to the emotion. They're angry. they're sad, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm afraid, they're afraid, right? Like I was driving with my daughter the other day in the car, and there was the whole family. I was in the front seat, she was in the back, she's 12, and she was so pissed, and she was ranting. And I was like pissed because she was pissed. And so I didn't say anything because I was deeply listening to myself, and I knew I was pissed. And I knew if I added any more words to what was already going on, it would just escalate, because I was not in a place to really listen to her. I had to listen to myself first, calm myself down. I told her that's what I was doing. And then when I felt settled, I could really listen to what was underneath all of her ranting, which was feeling sad and insignificant, and like she didn't matter as much to us as her brother did, that type of a thing. And so listen to the emotions, not the words. Oh yeah, you too, right? Yeah. And they can get very, they can get really emotional. And if we're like, oh, and I was like, in that moment, I had the thought, she's too emotional. Because that thought came from me I was angry. And so I was blaming her for being too much. Whew. I couldn't take it, and so I had to listen to myself, own my anger, own my irritation. I know in my wisdom that it's just not going to work if I approach her from that place. And I don't want to, because I want to love her. So listening to the emotions, not the words. I started to tune into her emotions. And then every emotion has a need. So no matter who in your life is going through something right now, including you, every emotion that they have or you have has a need. And so if we can start to get good at listening to the language of emotions' needs, and this is a lot from the work of Marshall Rosenberg in nonviolent communication, and what's called mindful communication nowadays. So helpful. Every human being on the planet, in my opinion, should do that work, should do the course. It's incredible. But so helps with conflict resolution, because the need wants to be met, and we're trying to get that need met, and it's not going to get met if we're not good at deeply listening to what's under the words and to the emotion. For example, if I'm angry, there could be lots of needs there. Maybe I need more space. Maybe I need a certain amount of order or cleanliness in the house. Maybe I need, and you're not entitled. Let me back up here a second. Like, don't take this information and use it as a weapon, against the people that you love. Like, you're not meeting my needs, and that's why I'm so pissed off, because it's your job, beautiful, to meet your needs. No one else's, yours. Us being people who are really on the growth path and interested in relationship as spiritual practice, which is what I'm about, and you're about too. I'm sure you wouldn't be listening to this. And then we can start to tune in just as a give to others, and then it's interesting what comes back in reciprocity when we start to operate this way ourselves. But you do it first, and not to get anything back, but just because to deeply listen to somebody and to sense their need and to ask them what they might be needing and to try to meet that need is really nourishing and really fulfilling if you give it a try. But it does require that we just kind of go beyond ourselves. We include ourselves, but we don't get caught in right and wrong. Byron Katie says, you can be happy or you can be right. Wow, right? Do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? And shit, honestly, a lot of times I'm like, I just want to be right. Because when we're in it, that's like how we feel. We just want to be right. Ooh, it takes a lot of courage and discipline to put the brake on that and just go, take a few breaths, listen to yourself, sense what your emotions are, name those. As you do the naming, this is mindfulness. Typically what happens is there's more space and you can see things a lot more clearly. And then you can start to tune into the other and sense what they might be needing, and ask them. So last piece of this, I named the 3. Listen to yourself, listen to your emotions, not the words, and then the needs under those emotions. We can say things to somebody like, I imagine you're feeling, right? I imagine, that's what I did with my daughter. Imagine you're feeling really angry with me right now. It makes sense to me that you'd be feeling pissed because I did kind of shut you down a second ago. Okay, so that's deep listening. I've heard what she said, but I went deeper. I got to the emotion and I empathized with it. I was like, I validated her experience. So that's something that's really fruitful and can work. I imagine you're feeling. I imagine you must be needing, like in this example with my daughter, I said, I imagine you must be needing me and your dad to just acknowledge your how well you're doing in school more often and tell you how proud we are of you. Right? And she's like, yeah, you know, like kind of crying. But you could see the letdown, like her whole little body just softened, and she could, you know, she was like way more out of her lizard brain and way more up in the prefrontal cortex, way more able to like hear. And she was so much more, just from, I imagine you're feeling angry. You know, and so that's those little things, like try it out today. You know, try it out with someone, if you someone you're with, and or yourself, and like start to tune into yourself this way. And when we do that, it amplifies our happiness, it amplifies our joy, it amplifies our sense of connection to others, which is huge. If we don't have that, we don't have happiness or joy. We just don't. Research has proven it to be true. And I think that's it. Those are the points that I wanted to mention. What about this talk on deep listening and healthy love really served you? Could you do me a favor and comment below and let me know if you can be specific? That would be great. What about this served you? What are you going to take away? Last but not least, I want to invite you to Radiant and on the Rise, which is my 5-day free masterclass happening. I changed the date. For those of you who are already registered, you'll get an email about this. It's January 25th. It'll start Monday, January 25th. And listening to yourself is really, we go much more deeply into that inside of that masterclass. So please do sign up for that. You'll see the link in my bio. And do comment and let me know. And share this. If you liked it, share it with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Oh, good, Sarah. Awesome. So we're gonna start on the 25th instead of the 11th. So I'm glad you'll be joining us for that. Be well. Sending you love and blessings. Let's see how I do this.